Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your host Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we talk about a brand who just rebranded and made a big fuss about it at Kentucky Bourbon Festival. They have a purple kangaroo. You may know who it is. So sit back and buckle in as you find out more about Larrikin Bourbon Company. Greg, thank you for spending some time with Scott and I here on this snowy, cold February evening.
Yeah, g'day, fellas. Good to be with you. And I tell you, out here in Lawrenceburg, it's it's been snowing pretty much all day, and it's about to start again by the looks. So we're sort of all hunkered down for the night.
With your bottles of bourbon close, right?
There's like 5 of them sitting right here, so I can.
we're all good.
I won't feel a thing.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. It's all about making sure you have a nice dram. I used to have this rule. If it was snowing, I was drinking. I would just take off work and I would just drink bourbon and watch it snow. And then I became more of an adult with 2 children, and then I couldn't do that anymore.
And then it started snowing all the time.
Yeah.
It was just snowing every day.
Yeah. Yep. That's how you end up not drinking anymore. It becomes a habit. So Luckily it hasn't done that for me. But I'm excited. You all had a huge rebrand that happened at Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and all of a sudden, we went away and we came back, and there was a giant purple kangaroo in the middle of Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And so, not to say you didn't have a precursor to that, because you did have Lawrenceburg Distilling, but really let's focus on Larrikin. So prior to this actual recording, you mentioned you did this all in a very short period of time. So can you give just a little bit of background on how you made the switch and why you thought it was the right time to do that?
Yeah, thanks. Look, one of the things about being a larrikin, I guess, is larrikinism is an Australian slang term that means that you don't do things conventionally. You don't you sort of go to the beat of your own drum a little bit. You ask forgiveness later, kind of deal. The closest word in the US would be like a maverick, or something of that nature. And that's really how we sort of see ourselves in many respects. So we started life as Lawrenceburg Bourbon Company. We were the first distillery, if you can believe that, to ever carry that name, and we thought that was kind of cool. And it did us. It was a good name. The problem is it didn't really reflect who we were, and that was having that maverick sort of spirit, sort of not really knowing what we were doing and just going and doing it anyway, and being told by everybody not to do it, and you couldn't do it, and so that really meant that we were going to do it. And we've learned a lot in a very short space of time. And it was literally, I don't remember the exact instance, but my wife Katie and I were just talking it over a cocktail probably, and I was like, I think we need to change this up a bit. And we played around with some names that in hindsight are so bad I can't believe we even thought of them. And then she came up with Larrikin, because that's a sort of how I've been pretty much my whole adult life, and it just seemed to fit really well. And we adopted the kangaroo logo and all that sort of thing. And once we decide to do anything out of Larrikin, we just do it. And we set a goal of being ready for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and we didn't know if we'd pull it off until literally the week before. And the rebrand was everything from our labels, everything, websites, labels, stickers, purple kangaroos, like this guy, signage on the building, everything. TTB and ABC and et cetera, et cetera. And we pulled it off in about 7 weeks. So it was a lot of work. But it was great. It was all hands on deck. We're still a very small team, and everybody just buckled in. And we've got some folks that have been sort of supporters of us since the day we started, And we had a lot of people volunteer time to come and help out, and it was fantastic. And it was the best, most ill-conceived decision I've probably ever made, was just going, screw it, we're just going to do it.
Well, sometimes you just got to go for it, right?
And that's our whole mantra with how we run the distillery. It's how we decide what to put into a single barrel. It's how we decide to do a lot of things. It's just sort of a damn the torpedoes approach. And, if we catch one on the broadside, well, it won't sink us. We'll just keep on trucking. So that's how we pretty much do everything. It's like, and I know we're going to talk about this later, but our decade rye cognac finish, we had these two awesome cognac barrels just fall in our laps, and we didn't know what to do with them. And we're literally just sitting around after, finishing out the back one day, and we're talking about what to do with this cognac barrel. And I'm like, well, we've still got, about 5 or 6 barrels of our 100-year-old rye, 10-year-old rye left. Let's do those. So we had 10 barrels, that turned out, and so that's what we just dumped into them. And that's how that happened. And, it's gone great. So, we don't, we just do what feels right at the time.
Well, I think, that's how, distillers used to be back in the day. And then it became all about, got to meet mass quotas and got to do that. You couldn't you produce the same thing over and over again. And now the consumer wants more, and they want that kind of maverick style. They want quick decisions and change ups, and they want something consistent that's consistently good.
Right.
But I think, being able to say, hey, we got this, let's do it. I think that's the American spirit, around the American spirit. No pun intended. I know, honestly, the rye is Canadian, so I'm not going to
Yeah, right. No,
North American spirit.
Yeah. But that's exactly right. I mean, we've had folks come in, and, we do a lot of private barrel picks and things like that for bourbon clubs and that sort of thing, and retailers and stuff. But we had some guys in from they were Kentucky somewhere, like Covington way, I think, and they had bourbon club and all that sort of stuff. And they were driving home the next day, and they came up to do the barrel pick, and I said, well, if you guys can come back after lunch tomorrow, we'll have it bottled for you, and you can take the barrel with you. And so we all just got up there on the Saturday morning, mucked in, got their 200 bottles bottled out of the barrel, and they came and picked it up next morning. You can't do that at a big distillery, obviously.
No.
And that's the sort of thing we sort of pride ourselves on being able to do.
That's pretty cool, because Scott and I had a barrel get lost for a while one time.
Yes.
7-8 months, was it?
Yeah, it was a while. We picked it in February, and it didn't show up until September.
Yeah.
We did a barrel pick at Four Roses. Oh gosh, it's probably 8-9 years ago, and it took nearly a year to get. And that was just standard. That wasn't. They didn't go missing. That was just how long it took.
Yeah.
And I hate waiting for anything. I can't wait for a bus, for God's sake.
So the question is, to go back to Larrikin name, is Katie also Australian?
No, she's a believe it or not, a rancher's daughter from Wyoming, cattle rancher. And, we often joke that we moved to Kentucky and there's really only 2 things to do in Kentucky. One of them's horses and one of them's bourbon. And I'm scared shitless of horses. So it had to be bourbon, much to her father's delight. They'd always put me on the biggest, nastiest one and hit it on the butt and send me on my way.
Well, that's what father-in-laws are for, right?
Oh my God. He was a tough old cowboy, I can tell you.
My father-in-law just makes me go install car windows. That's about what I get.
Really?
Yeah, he restores old Mustangs, and so I get a phone call. Can you come pick this up and
help.
Put it in the thing, and I'll do everything else? I'm like, sure, I guess I can be a paperweight and hold things for a little bit. We all got them.
At least you know your place.
Yeah. Hey, got to kiss the ring sometimes, man.
Yes, you do.
Falling in line is not a bad thing at all. And so how long have you been in the States?
I served in the U.S. Navy for a decade, or 10 years, 11 years. So I've been here for I came over in 2002, went home briefly in 2004 for 6 months or something, and then came back. So I'm a U.S. citizen. Obviously lived here for the best part of 20 years now.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I ask is because one of the things that we've kind of found in just having different brands talk to us is Australian whiskey has kind of been on the come up a little bit, right? People are distilling that. And so didn't know what your thought was just coming from Australia and that kind of budding whiskey culture over the last several years, and it may not have been the early aughts, to, now coming and living in the mecca of bourbon world, right? And I'm not poo-pooing on Scotch or anything like that. Like, obviously they have a place.
You can poo-poo Scotch, I won't be offended.
But like, you're in the mecca, right? Like, this Kentucky is where bourbon and whiskey kind of like, I feel like, flows out of right now. And so didn't know how you compare that, or if you had any whiskey kind of background prior to coming to the States.
No, but my family have been involved in the wine industry for since the year dot. And so I sort of grew up in a region called Margaret River, which is south of Perth. And it's a big wine region. So, I sort of, spent my childhood with purple feet and, jumping around in buckets of grapes and that sort of thing, just getting in the way. And, there's a lot of similarities between wine and, just making booze, right?
Yeah.
It's just some of the process is a little bit different. And I've got to tell you, making bourbon is a hell of a lot easier than making wine. I think we just got there we go. My alarm just went off at the distillery, so that these things happen in real time on your show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the wine industry has its ups and downs as well, but it's winemaking is farming essentially, right? So the bourbon part of it, if I'm making wine and have a vat of wine and a bit of bacteria or something gets in that vat, the whole thing's toast. Here, I could have a seagull land in the vat to just give it a bit more of a earthy flavor when it came out the other end. It wouldn't matter. So, not that we have any seagulls in our single barrels, of course. No seagulls have been harmed in the making of our bourbon. But the process is easier. So there's a lot of similarities, and we try and work off that our bourbon, our wine heritage when we're at the distillery. So, but that's where my sort of alcohol background comes from.
Well, it's a good one to have. I love wine.
And I love wine.
Yeah. Okay, so now we just have to go off on a random tangent. Scott, you knew this was going to happen when he said that. What's your favorite type of varietal? Are you a white, red, blend?
Oh, no. Well, it depends. If I was to answer that question 9 times out of 10, I would say I'm Australia produces some really big, meaty red wines, Shiraz and Cab Savs, and I really am fond of a GSM, Grenache, Medvedev, whatever it's called, blah blah blah. But then also, I really enjoy a good dry Riesling. That's my other, flinty Riesling that comes off old vines and doesn't get that much water, and there's not that many grapes, and that's my other favorite. They're the 2 things I would go for.
That sounds delightful. I'm a big Cab Franc fan. Love Cab Franc. And,
I like a Cab Franc too.
And a Gewürztraminer is my white wine of choice.
Ooh. And you could even pronounce it, which is remarkable.
You guys are using a lot of big words, and I'm just out here like, where's my bourbon?
Scott says, see red wine, drink red wine.
Yeah.
I was like, aren't they all the same?
Lots to be said about that.
We think we're like particular, in the bourbon world about tasting notes. Like, sommeliers are a different breed of special.
Well, being brought, this is okay. That's actually a nice little segue. Like being brought up around the wine world, you get what we would call at home wine wankers, that can smell this and smell that, and it looks like this and looks like that, and it's come from the eastern side of the hill and all this sort of nonsense. You get that a little bit in the bourbon industry, but it's not anywhere near as pronounced. Although some people, I'm just going to leave it at that.
To each his their own.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, if you want to taste gummy bears in my single barrel, have at it.
Yeah, for sure. But speaking of, you did also not just make a big stink about blowing up a very giant kangaroo. You also, from what we estimated, probably one of the most hit on whiskeys of Kentucky Bourbon Festival was this 8-year-old bottled and bond bourbon from Bardstown. So it's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, which is, our favorite, right, Scott? Is good old Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. And this one's a 75-21-4. And I think, Scott, this screams your palate to me after sipping through a little bit. And I see you're nodding your head along. What are your thoughts on this bottle after, not like drinking it at KBF is completely different than drinking it on a fresh palate, on a podcast.
Yeah, no, it's very traditional to me. Desserty, a little bit of fruit. Like, it's always like that fruitcake note. It's like kind of like got some cinnamon notes, but then it's got like a pop of cherry and, just well-rounded. And yeah, I've got this little sample bottle, so I had no stats on it, but, to know that it's a super traditional mash bill, 75% corn.
75-21-4.
Gotcha. Yeah, super traditional, and this is actually his first pour I've had of it, and first pour I've had tonight. So it was a good introduction to getting this, started on the whiskey tonight.
Well, for sure. And that 8-year-old, like, I feel like gives a lot of depth and complexity. And I think it does ring true to Kentucky, like nuttiness, butterscotch, caramel, like all that kind of flowing through. So yeah, I think it's a great representation of what Kentucky bourbon is.
Thanks. Yeah, we were really blown away by the reaction to it at KBF. It was. We ran out of it 3 days in a row. And, I tell people a story. We didn't make that very scientifically. We just pulled out of about 15 barrels, and we sat in my little office for what it is, myself and just a couple of one of the other folks on our team and a friend of mine, all with pretty similar palates. And we just literally worked through it for a day. We had to stop for an hour to sort of rest and hit back. And we weren't happy with it. And then boom, it just the right combo. And, we did the first release of this out of just 3 barrels. Our second release was 5 barrels to get it, to the same profile. And on the one we're doing right at the moment will probably be 5 to 7 barrels, I think. So, where it might be more, but we just hit on it on that very first take with 3 barrels, which was amazing to me. And I love it. I just love it.
Well, and I think, people appreciate a approachable bourbon, right? So if they're going to get to know you all and what you're crafting and creating, you're not shooting, 175 proof off in their face and saying, hey, like, blow fire out your nose. Like, here's a whiskey you can enjoy on a hot summer day, like it was at KBF this year. It was rather toasty. And so I think most people would appreciate that, because like right next to you, I believe, was Nulu, and Nulu had 140 proof hazmat bottle.
They did. Yep.
So, different strokes for different folks, right? But I think this is great. So is this, this is a sourced product, right? You purveyed this one. Is this something you look to keep as available as you can as stocks are, out
so
there?
we this was, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it, but one thing with us is we always are very transparent where the whiskey comes from. We put on the bottle where it comes from. I just won't. It's here in Kentucky, but we don't hide that. We run our distillery a little bit like a hybrid. So we have some product we contract distilled. We've got other product which we made, and we've got other product like this is the only full-on source product along with our 100% rye. And we're very transparent where it comes from and all that sort of thing. And I think people appreciate that. But insofar as this bottled in bond, we have after the reception we got for it, and at 8-year-old, that was a bit of a risk for us as well, because 8-year-olds aren't the same price as a 3 or 4-year-old, and it was a bit of a risk for us. But we thought, well, screw it, we'll just do it. And it worked, fortunately. And we have plenty of stock for folks. We've got a lot of barrels of this. In fact, this midway through this year will become a 9-year-old product. So, we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
But this will be available.
That's awesome. And what's the price point on something like this?
This sells like at Kroger or Liquor Barn or whatever. Sells for about $70, I think. That's
a value play, man. Like, that's a value.
Yeah, we try and do that as much as we can. I mean, everything. I just got a thing from our bottle guys today that prices were going up, but you do the best you can. I want people to drink it.
Yeah,
and as long as we're paying the bills, we're never going to get rich off this. But as long as we're paying the bills, we'll keep making it. And as I always say to folks, a small craft distillery like Larrikin is only as good as our last release or our last single barrel. And we're little, and if we put out a couple of crappy products, 1, 2 in a row, they'll just rightly so jump off the Larrikin train, the Larry train.
We can't get rid of Larry, man. Larry's a great asset to the bourbon community. And he's hopping around on the podcast too. Keep us on our toes.
He's everywhere.
One of the other things I enjoy, Scott, I don't know if you know this, but they also have a gin. It's called Fat Wombat. What a name.
Ooh, I can get down with that. Is that like a London Dry type?
Yeah, it's called so we're really going to lean into I love gin. So you asked about the Australian whiskey industry.
Yeah.
If you go into Kroger or Liquor Barn here, it's just a big long line of bourbon. Both sides run the whole aisle. You do the same in the equivalent store in Australia, and it's gin. So you just have a whole aisle of gin. And there's gin distilleries all over the country. They're everywhere. And they've really popped up in the last 10 or 15 years. And so gin's a big thing. So they have this gin, which is called Australian Classic. Well, it was Australian Classic Dry, but it's now Australian Classic. And it's, it's juniper forward and all that sort of stuff, but it's a little more beachy than, say, a classic London Dry. So that's Fat Wombat 1. And then we have a Kentucky gin, what we call our Kentucky gin. And we'll be bringing out 4 or 5 varietals of different gins this year, including a Shiraz finished, which is called Scarlet. It'll be called Scarlet Shiraz gin. We're going to bring out a Navy strength at 116 proof. And we're also, we've been experimenting with it, we've been finishing some of our gin and vodka, for that matter, in some of our single barrel bourbon barrels. And we didn't know what that would be like either. And I tell you, it's astonishingly good. And I don't drink vodka ever. As what's his name says, it's for skinny rich women on diets kind of deal. And what's that guy's name from Parks and Recreation that said that?
Oh, that would be Ron Swanson.
Right, Swanson. That's like my favorite ever quote. And so I'm just not a vodka person, but a lot of the guys at the distillery are. And, we were like, well, when we first tried it, I was like, well, this tastes like nothing. It's like, and they're like, well, that's the point. And I was like, well, what's the point of that? And I thought, well, that's the point. So, but then we decided we'd put them in some bourbon barrels, and it's, we don't leave it for long, probably about 5 months, and we'll bottle our first bunch of that next month. I'll send you some so you can try it out.
I was going to say, I was a gin guy before I was a bourbon guy. So
yeah,
me too. So Scott, I'll send you the gin for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He got me into gin. I enjoy a nice crisp gin.
I love gin,
and it's a great one. It's really refreshing. I love the botanical piece of it. And it's really, really fun. So yeah, I mean, I'm in. And then a really good gin finished in rye is the Rabbit Hole gin, right? So if you wanted to get like
I haven't had that.
Some tasting notes, right? Like they do a London dry and they finish it in rye whiskey barrels, right, Scott?
Yeah, it's finished in their Boxer Grill rye, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember what the name of it.
I haven't had it.
They rebranded it a few years back. It used to be in the flat-faced Rabbit Hole bottle, and then they rebranded it kind of like as a luxury type package,
like a bespoke type deal.
But yeah, barrel aged gins, I think it's a great, like, I like just botanical gins, like just love the clear spirit, but barrel aged is a good, like, hey, let's introduce some additional flavors that you're never going to get from,
and it's uniquely Kentucky, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Which I really like. Like that, if you had the Fat Wombat gin before, that first one we did was cucumber and rose petals. And we just sort of made that up as we were going along. It was only 2 botanicals, obviously, plus the juniper, and people really liked it. So that's what kept us on the gin train, as it were.
I mean, I think people should give gin a try, and especially a name like Fat Wombat. Like, how could you not get behind that cute, cuddly guy? As he's just Fat looking Wombat. At you, like, pour another, Jake, and then you just, you got your.
Give me some of that Wombat.
Give you some of that Wombat. But let's go back to Larry. Larry's got a bunch of brothers. And the Bottled and Bond is great, but he's got this purple single barrel guy. That is the color of Larry, and we have barrel C8, bottle 41, age 9 years, 116.8 proof, also 75-21-4, coming from Bardstown, Kentucky. This is a big boy bourbon, I'd like to say, and I think it's another representation of Kentucky bourbon, really well done. And this one is a wine drinker's bourbon. Like, it's got that jammy complexity to it, to me. It's got that red fruit, raisin, a little bit of cracked pepper. Like, this is a bold red wine mixed with bourbon, even though it's not finished. Like, it's just got a lot of those characteristics. And so I really enjoyed this sip, going from the 100 proof to 116. It's a pretty big step up, 16 points, but almost 17. But I think it balances because it's a little more fruity, and that bouquet is really nice. Again, I'm not the most articulate person as a Kentuckian, so give you what's off the top of the head. That's about it. But
that's how we roll.
I think anybody could appreciate this sip. Scott, I know you're not a high proof drinker like myself. What do you get in the first reactions?
Well, I think when you say big boy whiskey, I don't think it's really in terms of proof, like, because it doesn't drink that high. It's just like, it just has a body. It just has like a mouthfeel that, again, you said it. It's like that jammy. It's like that strawberry jam. Like, it's very, very red wine-ish.
It's like the Shiraz of bourbon kind of deal.
Yeah, there we go. We go.
The color on it, and I don't always give a lot of color, like a lot to color, but it is just dark and rich, and it looks like an old copper penny. But yeah, when you say big boy bourbon, I'm not thinking like it's gonna knock your socks off with proof and like melt your face, which is not something I typically like. But it's got that body that's just like, wow, this is not just your standard bourbon. Like this has more.
Yeah.
So one thing, guys, and Scott, I'm really pleased you said that, because one of the things that we won't do at Larrikin is put anything in the bottle that's going to burn you on the way down your throat, because I hate that personally, and we don't need to bottle it. So if we get some barrels that are just and they don't have to be high proof to be to be unpleasant, and if we get barrels like that, then we push them aside. They either stay up for a bit longer, or we'll blend them into one of our small batch, which is an 80 proof, or whatever the case may be. But one thing we pride ourselves on is not putting anything into a Larrikin bottle that is going to upset you once it leaves your mouth. It might have a bit of heat in your mouth or on your tongue, and that's what we want. But it won't burn going down. None of our stuff will, even if it's 100. We have our deep purple, which was just a unicorn barrel, 2 barrels actually, that we got in the last year, that we put out as a 9-year-old. They were 143 proof whiskies. They didn't burn either. They were just like, that never happens. That's why we pulled them out of the rack and sat them there. And just waited to see what we'd do with them, and that's what we did with them. And we have another one which we found, only one at this point, but that will probably release at KBF this year. But it'll probably only be 120 bottles or something.
Man, it's so crazy. Yeah, as of yesterday, it was 200 days until Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Like it's creeping up on us.
I love Kentucky, but I love KBF,
and I'm drinking out of my mini Glen from KBF.
There you go.
From 2023.
I'll tell you a very quick story about Kentucky Bourbon Festival. So 2 years ago, or 3, whatever it was, when we went to our first one as Lawrenceburg, had it not been for Kentucky Bourbon Festival and us sort of getting some recognition, but also selling product at the festival, we may not have been able to pay our bills in that first year. And it genuinely, KBF, and I've said this to the guys there, to Randy and stuff, KBF literally saved our bacon in that first year, because it's tough. And, that's why, I've got a very soft spot for the festival, I can tell you.
Yeah. I mean, the changes that they've made over the years to make it about the brands, the distilleries, the people, and the whiskey. I mean, I've been going to the KBF for 10, 15 years, and it's never been what it is over the past few years. Like, it is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, how much focus is placed on bourbon. I mean, it's the second word in the name, but it was always just a festival to me.
Part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now it is front and center. You've got however tall you're, Larry, the
16 foot, baby.
See, you got those in the middle of KBF. So yeah, it's a
they
big
didn't know
thing.
we were putting that up, and we kind of got told off a little bit, but it's fine. That's the Larrikin way, right?
Yeah. Was it taller than the guy on stilts?
Oh yeah, way taller than that guy.
There were some interesting things at KBF this year, but Larry definitely took the cake, and I appreciated it, because I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, that was my reaction to it. So, and that made me walk over. Like, it's like one of those things. It's like, okay, I'm gonna walk this way now, and because it was an eye-catching experience. And I will tell everyone listening to this right now, Scott and I have told you this multiple times, just get on their damn mailing list. Like, don't hesitate. Get on the mailing list and buy tickets, because you never know when you could help save a brand and make things happen. And I think the small craft, that's where I have the most fun. Like last year, they had bottle sales galore on all the big distilleries. the craft distillation is where I spend the majority of my time because it's just stuff I
It's so
don't
fun.
get to try. It's so much fun. And
And
that's
all
what
the
I enjoy.
podcasts are hanging around and influencers or whatever they're called, all those guys. And we met some just wonderful people, at the event that we're in touch with like regularly. And I'm just looking forward to going back just to catch up with people.
100%. We put our deposit down on our Airbnb. We're good to go. We'll be there.
Oh, geez.
Right.
I might come and stay with you guys.
Hey,
I'll just pitch a tent and come in and use a shower.
Well, we got plenty of room in the back of our Airbnb as well.
Have a little campground out back.
We have a whole frisbee game that we play. It's fun time.
Oh, dude, that'll be. I'll bring a bouncy castle or something.
Come on, like we come up with stupid games. We played last year was pass the sample kit around, and you had to pull a random sample out of a bin, and that's what you had to drink that round, and then we went around again, and then
that's pretty cool. That's a good idea.
Put a Coke can on a lawn chair, and then see if you can whoever hits the frisbee, and they get to open up a rare bottle that someone bought or was brought down with them. We played one hand of poker, and we all lost to this dweeb Dusty. I still hate him for paying him $20 for one hand of poker, but life goes on. Yeah. So anywho, I'm not jaded against that at all. But
we'll have the after party.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely after party. It's a lot of fun. Kentucky Bourbon Festival was great. We had a grill with no light, and we made burgers every night. It was just a great time.
Yeah. Bit of charcoal never hurt anyone.
That was gas. Even better. A lot easier.
Yeah.
Light it up and let it go. One other thing I'd like to hit on, and I'm not a huge cocktail guy, but I'm looking at your all's website, and easy to navigate, which big fan of UI UX. So great job. But I really need to get down to the distillery because I want to try a Larrikin Brown Derby. This sounds like a delightful cocktail. 2 ounces of the American Maple Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 1 ounce pink grapefruit juice, ½ ounce of honey syrup, and then the garnish of grapefruit peel twist. That just sounds like a easy drinking cocktail. Good.
Yeah, Emily runs our bar experience in front of house, and I think she just makes this stuff up. Pardon me. She's come up with some fantastic cocktails. She does a cocktail making, like she makes a cocktail, and we post it on our website and on Instagram every Friday. Cocktails with Emily. But there's a one she makes with our bourbon cream, which is just extraordinary. You can it's like boozy bourbon cream. If that's a thing. It's probably not a thing.
I mean, I'm sure it's a thing. But yeah, I mean, like I'm looking through these, and I might give some of these the old fashioned try. I'm terrible at cocktail making, so I have to follow a recipe to the letter of the law. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I think you all have some really cool stuff, coming down the pipe. This podcast will air in a little bit. You got some big news that's coming out of the distillery. You're working on things. Do you feel like sharing, the news?
Yeah, I'm very happy to share. So just what day is it today? Tuesday. Yesterday, we brought on a new lead distiller. She's a Lawrenceburg native. Her parents live literally down the street from the distillery. And we did a nationwide search trying to find as trite as that sound, but we did. And the person that we were thinking about first was she joined us. Her name is Barbara McDonald, most recently from Law's Whiskey House in Denver, Colorado. And I think Law's have, made some terrific bourbons and whiskeys. They've some good white spirits also. But the great thing with Barb is not only is she from Lawrenceburg, but she was with Law's when they very first started with their first 300-gallon pot still. And she's also an engineer that helped put together their distillery. So as we were talking about just before we came on, we've just bought a bigger still, well, two new stills, pot stills, a 500-gallon and a 150. which are new, and they're Barb's first job is going to be putting those stills together and getting them working for us. But, we couldn't be more excited. I think she'll bring a tremendous amount to the team. She's already had some great ideas on some new products moving forward. And, we're just super excited to have her on board.
That's awesome. That sounds like she's ready to hit the ground running. And, Laws, we were talking about this before, but Laws has been on our radar for a while. So I think you got a good asset there. That'd be awesome.
Well, the crazy thing is they were as smaller than we were 6 years ago, and now they're all over the country. They've got industrial kind of stills now, but I was out there 6 months ago, and they've got a terrific setup out there. But it started like us, and you can see where they've cobbled together the next space, and then we got to build another warehouse here to put this in, and they're doing all their own grains and everything there now, which it's a really good setup. So hopefully Barb can bring some of that juju over to Larrikin.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for what the future holds for you all. This will be the first of hopefully many podcasts, catching up with you and the team and Larry. We can't forget him. He's a good asset to the Bourbon Lens, and we appreciate you hanging out with us. A cold February night. I know it's easy to tuck in early and say, it's time to go to bed, and you have early mornings, I'm sure, but really appreciate you hanging out with us, and excited for what's next with Larrikin, and really thank you all for joining us tonight, and until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, boys.
Thanks a lot. That was a lot of fun.